Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Lekyndra Smith, Health Sector Director of Project Transition under the leadership of Dr. Joaquin Wallace. Welcome back to our high performing athlete and mental health interview series. Today we have with us Krista Reed. Hello, Krista. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can't complain.
That's awesome. Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
So, as Dr. Lekyndra said, I'm Krista Reed. Currently, I am a law student at SMU Dedman. It's my first year. Previously, I played basketball in Europe for 6 years. And before that, I was a student athlete at Vanderbilt.
Nice. So, do you mind telling us about your formative years? Because if I'm not mistaken, you were a big time high school basketball player as well, right?
That's what people like to say, yes. So in high school, I played at Bay High. So I'm from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. While there, we won one state championship. We went undefeated that year, 36-0, a big highlight for the school. And it was an opportunity for me to outdo my older sisters.
So you mentioned your older sisters. How many do you have?
3 older sisters, and they all played basketball at Bay High as well.
And they were all state champions, right?
State champions in basketball, and 2 won a state championship in volleyball.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a very competitive family.
Oh, you should hear the conversations.
Nice. So what made you decide to go to Vanderbilt out of high school?
You know, recruiting, every year, recruiting starting earlier and earlier. When I was in high school, it started 8th, 9th grade. And so I was getting a lot of letters, a lot of offers, and talking to a lot of coaches around the country. And during that time, I kind of decided that one, academics was the most important thing to me because my parents always stressed the importance of being a student athlete, student first. And then I also wanted to play in the best conference in the US. And so whenever Vanderbilt offered, it seemed like they had the best of both worlds, and I committed.
Nice. So what other schools did you have offers from?
I'll just give you my top 5.
Okay.
Vanderbilt was one, of course. And then there was Miami, who was also a private school in the ACC. There was Ole Miss, because I'm from Mississippi. Michigan, which is a highly regarded academic school, and then West Virginia. So the schools were kind of all over the place. They weren't all in the SEC, but they were all very good academic institutions.
Honestly, I always thought you were going to go to Stanford.
At one point, that was an option. It was far, too far away.
Understood. So going to Vanderbilt, coming off a season of 36-0, you're getting playing time as a freshman. I don't believe you started, right? You came off the bench at Vanderbilt your freshman year, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I was 6'6", man.
So talk to us about the adjustment and transitioning from starting every game, playing just about every minute, to now you're in college, you're a freshman, and now you're the 6th option off the bench. Like, what was your mindset for that? How did you prep for that?
Well, for one, I had older sisters who all played collegiate sports. So I had an idea of what to expect going in, and it was an opportunity for me to really learn. So going in, I knew that I was going to be on a team with other people who had more experience than I did, who had played longer than I had, and really knew the system and the coach as well. So I was going in with the mindset of learning as much as I could, as quickly as I could. And so if that meant that I had to come off the bench, that was okay, because every day I was going to work hard to do whatever needed to be done. And that's exactly what I did.
Nice. So talk to us about your most memorable obstacle while you were at Vanderbilt and how you overcame that.
I think as a student athlete, we can all identify with the injury aspect of, being a student athlete. Because whenever you're an athlete as well, you get injured, it affects everything. And so my freshman year, the beginning of SEC play, I suffered a season-ending injury. In my ankle, I tore all of the major ligaments. And so, at that point, you can't walk. You can't really do a lot of things for yourself. You can't practice or play your sport anymore. And so it kind of took a toll on me academically and athletically. And so it was tough to get through, but I kind of got to learn a little bit more about myself in that moment and how I handle adversity. And some ways are better than others. And through that process, you get to learn. it was a good opportunity to learn, even though it was painful. And whenever I got to come back that summer, I was ready to take on the new challenge of trying to fit back into a system that I never really got comfortable in. And so, with the support of my coaches, my teammates, and athletic trainers, I was able to come back for a second season. It was a pretty successful season.
In that moment of you trying to find yourself or just coming to terms with things about yourself, name 3 things that you feel like you overcame. And if you don't overcome those 3 things, you don't lead the conference in free throw percentages.
Well, one thing is your identity is not in your sport. You're more than just the sport that you play. And I think that as athletes, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform. And the pressure is good. It helps you to, work hard and be the best that you can be. But at the same time, that pressure can get to be too much. And it's because, like, we put our identity into our sport. It's like, I'm Krista Reed, I'm the basketball player. And I have to work hard so that people know me as a basketball player. But no, I'm a student. I'm a child of God. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm an artist. Like, I'm so many other things that I don't have to focus on one aspect of myself. And so even like coming back the next year, knowing that basketball isn't all that I am, it helped me to kind of work hard to the point where I was ready to come back, but not put so much pressure on myself that I end up re-injuring myself or I end up hurting somebody else in the process. But I was able to focus on it in a healthy way. The second thing is there's always something you can be doing. So I couldn't play at the time, but I could cheer for my teammates. I could work on my free throws, even though I couldn't walk. I mean, I had a boot. I could work on my free throws. I could be somewhere studying. And the more you realize that there are other things that you could be doing, the less you think about how bad your situation is. And so going forward, I think that I've carried that on in life. It's like, yeah, this is bad right now, but there are other things that I can be doing so that when it gets better, I'm ready. And then the third thing is having a good support system means a lot. And I think that a lot of us try to go through things on our own, and we try to make it through things on our own. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you make things worse and you internalize a lot of your feelings, which end up coming out in some other kind of way that's not really healthy. So those are the top 3 things I learned from that experience.
Honestly, you mentioned some very, very important things that I think sometimes only adversity can bring those things to the forefront, right? That injury really brought a lot of things to the forefront. How did you deal with that mentally?
When it first happened, it was a panic because it was the first real injury I had ever had. I had a finger injury in high school, but I mean, I was out for a month. I was back before the season started. It wasn't a big deal, but this injury took me 6 to 7 months to recover from. And it was tough because I felt at the time that I was letting my teammates down, and I felt like I was letting my family down. And whenever you're from a small town and you go to college and people are like, oh, I can't wait to see you play, and then you're not playing, it's like, what happened? So I felt like I was letting a lot of people down, but there are things that happen in life that you can't really control. And that's another thing I had to learn. It was a little bit of extra motivation so that when I come back, I can kind of make up for the lost time. It's like, yeah, I got hurt, but I understand my role. I understand that I have these people supporting me, and I'm not going to forget about you just because I got hurt. And I know that you're not going to forget about me just because I got hurt.
We've interviewed people from a lot of different conferences, formerly Pac-12, Big 12. I don't think we've interviewed anybody from the Big 10, but I'm always curious about the mental health resources that athletes have at their disposal. And so, when we talk to the kids at Oregon, they have a bunch. But what resources did Vanderbilt provide you or any other student athlete for the sake of mental health?
So I'll preface this by saying I graduated from Vanderbilt in 2018, where mental health was kind of starting to gain traction. So when I was there for the 4 years, we had a sports psychologist that would come in and meet with us maybe like monthly or weekly, because our coach thought that we needed, some mental support to help with the game, because as a lot of people know, sports is not just physical. It's about what, like 90% mental. So we had a sports psychologist at our disposal, and if we needed to meet with her, we could book an appointment with her, go talk to her if her office was open. But we had one sports psychologist. And then on campus, we had a mental health resource center, but it was really hard to get appointments. I think that as mental health has gained traction and has become more important, I'm sure that they've expanded the resources at this point.
So in retrospect, just from your time frame there, what resources do you wish you would have had that you know for a fact would have benefited you mentally to help get you over the hump?
Well, because our coach had the sports psychologist come in often, I think that we got enough interaction with her and got enough like mental coaching from her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it was with other teams on campus, if their coach prioritized their mental health like that. And if their coach didn't, then they would probably wish that we had more sports psychologists or more resources to mental health so that they can go seek assistance on their own.
You mentioned support earlier in the interview. And so we at Project Transition totally understand the importance of support, which is why we created our mentorship program called Project Success. Who are your biggest mentors that offers you support?
When I was an undergrad or now?
Either or, both.
So in undergrad, I think that I leaned on my sisters a lot because they had already been through a lot of what I was going through in terms of injuries, relationships with your teammates and coaches, performance issues. I really leaned heavily on my sisters, and I think that that's a privilege because not a lot of people have family who they can talk to whenever they're feeling stressed or worried about things. And now I still kind of lean on my sisters. And so now I'm entering a new phase of life where I'm actually having to mentor and try to meet new people, which is something completely out of my comfort zone. But I know that mentorship is really important.
You have an excellent high school career. You have a great collegiate career. And now all of a sudden you're about to graduate. You don't get drafted, right? Do you get any tryouts from any WNBA teams?
No.
No tryouts from any WNBA teams. And so what happens to your career at this moment? What was the next step?
So I knew that I wanted to keep playing basketball. And so at that point, you get an agent, and then your agent gets you a job overseas. And so I was going through that whole process, which was a little bit difficult because I think that I expected more support or more help from my coaches because they were very well connected. But luckily I had a teammate who I had a very close relationship with. She sent me her agent, and her agent and I started working together, and we've been talking ever since. Me and the agent are still talking now. I think that he's also a good resource for me as I start this new journey in life. Got an agent, and the first job he got me was in Ireland. And so I went to Ireland for my first year, and I got a master's degree. So that was a very, very unique experience.
Nice. Let's talk about that because I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. So what is your degree in?
It is a master's in business and entrepreneurship. It was a 1-year program.
Wow. So you go to Ireland. Like, was this in your agreement, your contract, your basketball contract? Like, how did that work out?
So I think Ireland and teams in the UK are the only teams that really do it because it's an English-speaking country. And so you can go in and go to school right away, whereas if I were going to Serbia or something like that, I wouldn't be able to get a master's degree. And so Ireland has some clubs, because they can't really afford to pay good players money, they'll offer like a small stipend and a master's degree instead. And so I was like, well, this is an opportunity to get another free degree. The club seemed really nice. I've always wanted to go to Ireland, so I was like, let's do it.
Nice. Wow. Congrats. That's actually really good information for a lot of people. I know most athletes, once they graduate, they're really just tired of school. But I think for lifelong learners, they understand that this is really an opportunity twofold. I can continue my career, right? And I can continue my education and add value to myself via another degree. So congrats on that. I did not know that. Congrats. So what happens after you're in Ireland? Because you weren't there 6 years, correct?
No, I was there for 2 years. First year in Ireland, my team was actually not that good. I think we finished like towards the bottom of the league. And it was a little stressful for me because as an import, you're expected to, raise the standard, help the team do better. I felt like things weren't really connecting, even though individually I was performing and I was like towards the top of the league in points and rebounds. I wasn't being as effective in helping get the rest of the team involved. It was a little stressful for me, especially trying to do this while I'm getting my master's degree and with the lack of resources that basketball in Ireland had in the past. And so I didn't want to go back to Ireland the next year. I finished what I needed to finish for my master's degree. I was like, my agent's name was Matt. I was like, Matt, get me out of here. And lo and behold, he couldn't find anything else, I think because my team was not very successful. And so I had to go back another year. And I'm actually really, really happy I went back another year because that next year we won the Irish Cup and I was the MVP. And it was a really good experience to finally start winning again after like losing for so long. That was my experience with Ireland. And then after the Cup, COVID happened. All the seasons around the world got canceled. And so I spent a year at home.
You finished your professional career. Are you still on the market?
No, can't do it.
And then you decide that you're going to apply to law school. And so where do you get this notion, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, you went to Vanderbilt to be a doctor, which makes sense, right? And now all of a sudden you're in law school. So what brought about that change in career thought process?
All right, so I'll have to take you back.
Okay, let's go back.
All right, so you're right. When I went to Vanderbilt, I wanted to actually go to pharmacy school after. So that was the plan, that was the goal. But my junior year, I got the opportunity to study abroad. I studied in France for a month, and we studied healthcare systems and the pharmaceutical industry. I did a big project on the pharmaceutical industry. When I was finished with that project, I said, I do not want to do this. I knew at that moment, I was like, no, this isn't for me. So my undergrad degree it's called Medicine, Health, and Society. And it's basically how health sciences intersect with sociology and psychology and all things relating to health. So I was like, well, I'm still really interested in what I'm studying. I'm going to, finish out my degree in this and also minor in psychology. So I was like, I'm going to finish out my degree in this and we'll see what happens. So I graduate and then I go to Ireland and get a master's degree, business and entrepreneurship. It's very broad. And I always had thoughts that I would just apply it to the healthcare field when it was time for me to retire from basketball. So then COVID happens and I'm sitting at home for a year, kind of twiddling my thumbs, trying to find like some work to do. And I end up working with a tech company. During the pandemic, tech companies got a lot of money. And so I was doing digital marketing for a tech company that liked to build websites to make a profit off of. So this was something completely out of left field, but I was like, why not? It's an opportunity for me to kind of build on the entrepreneurship skills that I built in my master's program. And it was an opportunity for me to explore something new. So I did it for a while, didn't like it. So I was really thinking, what am I going to do when basketball is over? Thankfully, I played in Germany and Australia for another 3 years, so it gave me time to think about it. But I was kind of just reflecting on some of the classes that I took in undergrad in my master's program. And I reflected on the law classes that I took. And I really, really enjoyed those, and I did really well in those. And so I kind of researched that industry and the different types of law that I could practice. And the industry is so broad, and it gives me an opportunity when I graduate to do almost anything. I'm not cornered into something that I may not like. And so during the next 3 years, I took the LSAT, I applied to law schools, and I'm here now.
That's awesome. How much do you credit your exposure via basketball or any other travel to your ability to be self-driven and motivated to the point that you're proactive enough to do the legwork yourself to get what you need to get?
I think a lot of that started at home. My parents are, I wouldn't call them pushy, but they make me think about things before I have to think about them, so that when it's time to think about them, I've already thought about it, if you know what I mean. And so while I was playing in Germany, they wanted me to come home. You know, parents always want you home. They want you stateside so that they can see you and talk to you more. And so I really started planning then when would be a good time for me to retire. And if I'm going to retire, I don't want to stop and then not have anything to do, or stop and then have to figure out what to do. I want to be able to transition from one thing straight into the next, because I didn't need any time off. Some people need time off to kind of regain composure or, you know, recollect themselves. But I think that because I had played for so long, I was ready to transition right into something else.
It's nice to be decisive. So, Krista, being a basketball player and being fairly popular, coming from a small town, playing in the quote unquote best conference, what was it like being a public figure, and how much pressure was that placed on you?
I think that there's a lot of pressure placed on you. Even every year as a student athlete, you get media training. That's how important it is that you maintain a good image. You don't embarrass yourself, embarrass the school. And I don't know, you mentioned earlier that I'm a preacher's kid. So growing up, even, I had to maintain a certain image. I couldn't get caught, you know, out doing anything, because then word around the community, did you see the preacher's kid did this and did that? And so I've always had pressure on myself to kind of just not necessarily be uptight, but just maintain a good image, maintain a respectful image. And so going into college and, you know, adopting that mindset as an athlete, it was something that I was familiar with, but it did always feel like I couldn't be myself at times. And so, but I have a story. My senior year, it was around the time when there was a lot of police killings, a lot of that going on. And so a lot of athletes were kneeling for the national anthem. We kneeled for the national anthem after we talked to our athletic directors for a really long time about it. Their concern was just that it wasn't a one-time advocacy thing, that it was something that we carried with us and that we advocated for in many other ways besides just kneeling for the national anthem. And I think that that was really important for them to express to us, because there were so many opinions about kneeling for the national anthem. If you kneel, you hate your country. If you don't kneel, you're not for the cause, or, you know, whatever you decided to do was going to have a big impact on how your fans viewed you. And so when we did it, that was like one of the first times I kind of did something that didn't go in line with what my image was supposed to be. And so I was really nervous about it, but it was something that I really did believe in. And so I really got to express myself about it. And one of the cool things about it was afterwards, our athletic department kind of set up meet and greets with our fans to kind of have open dialogue and open conversations about what it was about. Like, why did we kneel? Is there any other way that we could have expressed it? What are we doing in the community to kind of propagate our cause instead of just kneeling and calling it a day? And so it kind of helped me see that I can be myself, and I don't really have to explain it to other people, but being able to explain it to other people and hear their point of view is one way that you can be yourself and still resolve conflict at the same time.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because although this interview isn't about me, the moment that I was able to get away from the things that people really remembered me for, like, I took it. Do you think that factored into your decision to go to Vanderbilt? Because it is, what, 6 hours from home? Because I think it's easier to be yourself away from home. You can grow a lot when you don't have the pressures of being a PK and everybody knowing you, especially in a small community. Everybody knows everybody. So I'm curious if that also, even unconsciously, factored into your decision to go to Vanderbilt. Because you could have gone to Southern Miss, right? It's right up the road. There are a few schools between Vanderbilt and Bay St. Louis, Mississippi.
I really did want to get out of Mississippi. I think that I was scared of being in Mississippi my whole life. Like, you meet a lot of people from Mississippi who never leave the state. And so maybe that did play a little bit of a role in it. It gave me space to find out who I was without having to think about how other people were going to view me or judge me. But also I wanted to have like real life experience outside of where I grew up. If I had gone to LSU or Ole Miss or Mississippi State, not just someone, I was always going to have a lot of people there knowing me and kind of pushing their image of who I was onto me. And so I may have ended up in a role where I felt like I had to perform for other people, and I didn't want to do that.
So I have a quirky, funny question.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of good basketball players that come from the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but Muhammad Abdul-Rauf is one of them. A lot of people consider him Steph Curry before Steph Curry. And it's funny that you mentioned the national anthem deal, because that's actually when he kind of got iced out of the NBA, because he wouldn't, for the national anthem. And so he's a shooter. You're a shooter. Who wins the free throw contest?
At this point, right now, I would say me. I would say me. If we're talking about right now in this moment, me.
Yes. Okay. We're airing this.
I mean, if we're talking about maybe like 15 years ago, what was I, 14? He would definitely beat me. I don't know.
Saying right now, right? Nice. So before we wrap everything up, do you have any nuggets that you want to leave for our audience or athletes?
I think the biggest one is to just always be yourself. I think that a lot of the adversity that you go through is just to help you find out who you are. It's not to beat you down. It's not to make you fail. It's for you to find out who you are and to find out how you deal with adversity and how to anticipate when you may deal with adversity so that you can be proactive in things. And if you have faith, if you're very big in faith, really try to lean into that and incorporate that as part of your identity and not just your sport.
So Christa, if people want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, readabout_33. Read as in my last name, about_33.
Nice. So thank you for coming again. And I am Dr. Lekyndra Smith, Health Sector Director of Project Transition under the leadership of Dr. Joaquin Wallace. You can find us at ptransition.org. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And thank you all for listening.